Well, a program that mails free books to more than 100,000 Kentucky children every month is now facing a major funding cut.
Now, the state Senate's version of the budget would slash how much Kentucky matches local fundraising for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
And program leaders say a majority of local chapters could be forced to scale back or even shut down. WKYT's Madison Porter has the story.
Dolly Parton's Imagination Library launched in Kentucky in 2021. Every month, children under 5 years old receive a book in the mail for free that is theirs to keep. Since its inception, leaders say the program has grown to reach 138,000 kids per month.
Recent data from the Kentucky Department of Education shows that the percentage of students who were kindergarten ready were as much as 13 points higher among children who were in the program than who were not in the program.
The state has always put up $2.5 million to fully match local fundraising. The new budget keeps that number, but would only cover 1/3 of the match, leaving local programs to make up for the difference.
80% of those programs have said they would either have to cap, to reduce, or to close their program without that funding.
Many programs already struggle to cover the 50% they're responsible for, like in Jefferson County.
This would be increasing our book bill by anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000 a month, depending on our enrollment. And so that's just not an increase that we're prepared to absorb.
Program leaders want to expand, not shrink. Westerfield says there are still 120,000 kids they need to reach, especially those in rural counties.
There are still so many kids in McCreary County that we physically cannot touch, we cannot interact with, that the Dolly Parton Imagination Library will get to them.
In Lexington, Madison Porter, WKYT.
And the program partners are urging Kentuckians to call their lawmakers and fight for funding.